Well, if there was any day to catch some crays that I've been looking for that long, today is going to be the day. Because it is the crevice creeper competition hosted by Central Coast Sea Lions. And real, fingers crossed, conditions are looking absolutely mint. So, been on the cray hunt, and if it's any day, surely it's going to be today. While there wasn't a ton of swell around, we did have a high swell period. On this day, it was about 15 seconds. Now that's just a measurement really between the peaks of the waves. And that big spacing means that you're not getting smashed by lots of little waves, but you do have these huge masses of water moving and surging around the rocks. And in a second here, you're gonna see just how powerful that water can be. Luckily enough, the visibility wasn't terrible this day, and dropping down for my first dive, I could already see it was super fishy. Not really necessary for cray diving, but it gives you the feeling that it's going to be a good day. We had baitfish up high, baitfish down low, big silver drummer. Even in the distance there, you can kind of make out a big grey nurse shark. Getting right up in the shallows and tossed around in that big swell period, wasn't long before we started to find some crays. They were stuck pretty deep under this ledge, but I thought it'd be worth calling my buddy over and seeing what he reckoned. Nick! Sam? Oh, that's going to be a doozy, mate.
Good ones in there.
After a little chat though, we decided it probably wasn't worth getting stuck in this hole when we can keep swimming out along the reef and seeing what else we can find. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't quite pick it up, but you'd never guess what I spotted from the surface. There was no mistaking the weird Mickey Mouse shovel-looking antenna of this slipper lobster. Oi! Nick! And now we were on the board. Super weird spotting this slipper lobster, like semi-hanging out on the rocks here. Usually they're hanging out on big rock walls, dropping off into deep water, but here this one was just chilling pretty near the top of the reef. It's not uncommon to find them in pairs as well, so I checked out this little hole, but only a blind shark was home. Thinking that slipper lobster was safe in that bag hanging off my float, we continued the swim round to see what we could find. Focusing the efforts on these big, deep rock walls. You can see this little hole in the back here, and I'm no expert looking for crays and slippers and all that, but for me, that's exactly what I'm looking for when I want to find some slipper lobster. I'm definitely still getting my eye in, but for the most part, they seem to be concentrated around the roof and walls of big cracks and overhangs. And they seem to love these areas where there's little caves and pockets that they can tuck themselves into and hide. Dropping down into this little sandy bowl, you can see it's full of Port Jackson sharks and a nice wobbegong there. Now these Port Jacksons migrate to our coast in huge numbers through winter for their breeding season. Pretty harmless, they just eat shells and mollusks and stuff, and pretty cool to see them all sleeping there. Here my buddy's just asked me to spot him. You can see diving down here, this massive hole. He's managed to find some big crayfish and a bit of a swim through. They good?
There's a wobbie in there, tried to move him. He's dusted up all the thing.
Oh shit.
But there's over a kilo, each of 2 or 3. There's about six or 7 lobsters in this corner. Fucking wobbies.
We'll give it a minute, eh? While we're waiting for that dust to settle in there, you can see just how much surge is pushing around us. We're a fair ways off the rocks, and all of these bubbles are from that giant mass of water pulling off the headland. And this is where things start getting a little hairy. It all started when I couldn't find my spear gun or float anywhere. Swimming back around the corner a little bit, I noticed it all tangled up on the rocks, clearly dragged there by the powerful surge. Now, if you're not comfortable or confident in the ocean, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing this, but I waited for a little gap in the swell and managed to swim myself up onto the rocks. Truly lucky this day that there wasn't much swell getting around, and there's just a heap of water moving around these rocks. Even still, it's pretty humbling when you can feel the weight of all that water dragging you around however it wants. Locating my spear gun and getting tossed around in this absolute washing machine, I pulled on it with everything I had, but it was well and truly tangled on these rocks. With more of that surge smashing in and seeing this situation turn even more ugly by the second, I decided to rip my fins off and run back up the rocks to catch my breath. Getting myself to a reasonably safe position where I can observe the sets and pick my time here, I bunkered down behind this rock. Even with it breaking up the force of all of that water, it's still hard to get your head around the sheer weight of it pressing against you and dragging you around. After patiently waiting, I finally got a break in the sets and I scampered out from behind my rock to try and retrieve my spear gun. Unfortunately though, it was well and truly tangled. There was no easy way to get this off. Luckily, I still had my knife on me and I managed to cut the Dyneema shooting line and pull it free. As I was running back to the safety of where my fins were, I noticed something. The line felt incredibly light. The float that was holding my slipper lobster was nowhere to be seen. In fact, I was soon to find out that it had drifted all the way back out past the boat. And missing from it, a catch bag containing a slipper lobster. Getting back out to my mates down a slipper lobster, and not with just a bruised ego but some bruised feet from all those rocks as well, we decided to head back in around the corner to get out of the surge.
Did you get your gear back?
Yeah, I got my gun and my float and my line, but the float's fucking exploded, so...
Lucky I put my slipper up here.
Over the next couple hours, we dived all along this stretch of coast, not really seeing much at all, unfortunately. Aside from these big grey nurse sharks floating around, and this little baby cuttlefish, it was pretty quiet. So it was time for the next spot. And in the water, it was pretty clear that surge had not let up at all. I tell you what though, trying to breathe up with all that water moving off the rocks was next to impossible. It definitely took me a couple dives to get my bearings and find where those crayfish were.
There's at least 2 legal.
Yeah.
Seeing a crayfish that looked pretty good to me, I stuffed my hand in that crack and did my best to get my fingers around it. In New South Wales, to keep an eastern rock lobster, the carapace must be a minimum of 104 millimeters or 10.4 centimeters. And unfortunately for me, it was pretty easy to tell that this cray was below that.
Small.
We continued diving here for a little while and a couple of the other lads managed to get crays, but it wasn't long until we called it. That search really wasn't letting up and the comp was starting to come to an end. Plenty of divers weighed in both eastern rock lobster and slipper lobster that arvo, and with thousands of dollars worth of prizes, everyone went home happy. Unfortunately for me though, my esky was pretty light.
Well, it's a few days later now, and after getting absolutely skunked on the weekend and skull dragged on the rocks with all my gear, I figured give it another crack, see if we can get some crays, some lobsters. I've definitely got a few here. It is in the crevice creeper zone though, so there's a chance it got cleaned up, but fingers crossed it's restocked and ready to rip. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I did manage to score myself an Old Man Blue catch bag, so let's see if we can load it up.
Jumping in, I noticed the water's getting pretty warm. It's definitely a good sign for the start of the pelagic season. Sure enough, not even a couple weeks later, the fish started showing up. But for now, I'm going to get the bubbles out of my suit, just have a look over this ledge and see if anything's getting around. It was pretty quiet out there, so it was back to business. Dropping the spear gun, it was time to get the torch out and finally get some crayfish. Dropping down into this big gutter and lining up all the cracks I can see, I came across this big cave system. And it's so hard to get a good shot in these cracks with the camera on my head, but you can just make it out in there. There's an eastern rock lobster right at the back. I scanned the rest of the crack just to make sure there weren't any others in arm's reach. But unfortunately, this guy was alone and he just kept marching his way further and further back as the light hit him. Getting close to the end of my breath hold now, there's no way I'm stuffing myself in that crack trying to pull him out. I quickly checked the cracks on the way up just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. And with all that good sign, when I got to the surface, it was time to put the gloves on. Now, a little earlier, I mentioned something about getting your eye in, and this is a perfect example. And in real time, let me know if you spotted the lobster, because the first time, I had no idea it was there, and I completely missed it. Still being pretty new to the lobster game, my eyes and my brain are still adjusting, trying to pick out the patterns and the shapes of these guys against the background. There's definitely something to be said that once you start seeing these guys around, your eyes and your brain almost tune in to find them easier. I almost gave up on this spot, but turning around for one quick check, I'll mark it this time, I spotted the slipper lobster. After getting a good breathe up with my heart pounding, knowing this was my opportunity to get a good lobster, I made my approach. As I get closer here, you can see just how well these slipper lobster camouflage to their environment, looking just like the rocky terrain they like to hang out on. And as I got closer here, I noticed there was a second one in there as well. Juggling the torch around, trying to light them up for the camera, I almost missed my opportunity to grab them. Lucky for me though, they couldn't get too far and I had myself two beautiful slipper lobster. Now you'll notice I flipped them over here. I'm actually checking if they have eggs. On the right, there's a female lobster and she has all these extra little swimmerettes in her tail. And when those fins are full of eggs, you can't take them home. It's hard to describe the sheer amount of dopamine and satisfaction in finally finding the things you've been looking for so long. After gathering all of this information and building your knowledge, you finally managed to put it all together. Stoked with my catch, I put it in my old man blue bag, and there was one spot left I wanted to check. Now I knew at one point in time there'd been slipper lobsters found in this cave here, and I just wanted to see if they were still in there. One of the cool parts about diving for lobster is once you know where they like to hang out, you'll often find them coming back to those same places. And sure enough, out the back there was a couple of slipper lobster. Now the bag limit for slipper lobster is 2 per person, but I wanted to see if I could grab one of these and upgrade one of the ones that I already had. Now my arms aren't very long and these guys are pretty far back, so it wasn't looking good. Dropping back down with a fresh breather, I poked my head into the cave, and at first I couldn't see them. And then I noticed behind this sea urchin, one had walked itself right to the front. I started gently pulling that sea urchin out so I didn't spook it deeper into the crack. And then I went for the grab. And after a bit of a tussle, I had it in my hands. But just as quickly as I grabbed it, it managed to slip its way out. With a couple lobster in my bag and that Arvo light starting to get low, I took it as my sign to start swimming in.
He's only gone and done it, mate. Yes, lad. Couple slippers in the old man blue sea sack, and I am pretty happy with that, mate. It's cool to see that eastern out there as well. A little deep, but save them for next time, mate. And those other slippers, of course, just slipping my grip, but it's good. We know where they are. We can go back and look for them again. Next time, even leave the female there, and they can keep coming back for more. How good? Let's get into it.
Finally managed to get some of my very own lobsters. And these guys have been chilling now for about 24 hours. I just soaked this tea towel in some salty water. I think it's about 3% salt to water ratio, something like the ocean. Just keeps these guys nice and dry and somewhat alive for a little bit longer usually, but this long in the fridge, they're usually pretty dead by now. Probably wouldn't keep them in for much more than like 3 days, really. Slipper lobster have to be some of my favorite lobsters. They look so weird, so unlike anything else. I think those little normal crayfish, you know, they're pretty consistent around the world, seemingly, but slippers are just so different to everything else you see. Of course, like I was explaining before as well, got a male and a female here, and you find them together in caves. Female has all these extra little flaps to hold all those eggs in that row, like I was saying a little earlier. Now, worth mentioning, you can like and subscribe to this video and all that kind of good stuff as well, but YouTube has a new feature. you can hype this video. If you like it and you want to let me know you like it heaps, you can head down to the button down below and hype the video, give it some points and help it get some more traction. Currently this feature is only available on mobile, but basically every week you've got a certain amount of points to help support your favorite creators. With these guys being in the fridge for like 24 hours now, they're definitely pretty dead, or at least subdued enough to be put out of their misery when we do this next step. Run that knife first into the head and in half, cracking our way through that shell and then working our way down the body. Yeah. Top of that shell is pretty tough. Nice sharp knife and taking your time. There we go. Nice, beautiful, bright tamale there as well. We'll take that out. And the reason I grabbed the female is that the last one I got, not sure if it's a female specific thing, but had a beautiful, super vibrant orange tamale and it was super tasty. Thinking you can kind of use that as a garnish on the dumplings, but it also makes a pretty awesome whipped butter as well. Gloving up for this bit because it is definitely dirty work. As far as I can find out, this tamale here is actually known as the lobster's hepatopancreas. So it's kind of like a mix between a pancreas and a liver, doing the kind of job of breaking down food and making the digestive enzymes to break the food down as well. Some other species do have it. I know octopus do. I think abalone might, potentially. Got an abalone spring roll video and I'm pretty sure I go over it in that, so you can check that out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So that's that male and his tamale. Let's grab out another bowl because we're gonna remove this meat from the cray. So I like to run my finger along the edge like this, kind of separate the meat, kind of run my thumb up there to kind of get that out. It's probably an easier way to do this, and if you're aware of it, well, let me know, because I'm always battling like this. And you can kind of blanch the tails a little bit, just like semi-cook them, put them in some hot water or something maybe, I don't really know. Scoop all that out, put the shell to the side. Do the same thing for the other side here. Danskis, that's two sides of the same lobster, of the male. It's like a lucky dip, this thing, the tamale. Not really knowing what you're gonna get, but if she comes good and she got some beautiful tamale, we might just use it to make a nice little garnish, eh? So, first of all, lights out for the slip up. In there she goes. Moment of truth. Try not to go too deep there. Through the tail, down she goes. Just clean that knife as we go where we need it. Get the little boops out of there. Big splitter, or we could be on here. We are pretty on here. It's looking pretty orange to me. Yes, lad. Now I really don't know if that's like, because it almost looks like that is the tamale maybe, and that's kind of the roe that's coming, that would be coming in her little things. Whichever way, it's quite tasty. So, usually when they are in berry, and you would have seen me checking them as I pulled them out, open up the tails, have a look, there's no eggs actually hiding in there because it's not legal to take them if they're like that. No good. But this, I think that might be the roe. It's inside though. There's no way for me to know that. So that definitely looked like it was the tamale there. Beautiful. Look at all that. Super, super orange. Super clean flavor, like a lobster, like full lobster essence. There it is. Yummo. Let's get rid of the other tamale stuff and get the meat out of this female, and then we'll get on to the next bits. So that's that raw lobster meat all picked out now, and we're going all out on this dish. Big old blowout. I want to make lobster butter to put over the top of those dumplings. Super rich, super indulgent. If you've seen the chawanmushi video where I use slipper lobster as well, so we're gonna be doing the same thing this video right now. The first step is gonna be to get another bowl out. What I'm gonna do is get rid of any scrappy bits, any poop shooty bits, but also under here, under the legs and the sort of the carapace, I guess, if you will, is the lobster's gills. And this is just what I heard, what I've been told. The gills can flavor stuff and we give it a not so good flavor. Same way fish gills
whole lot of blood, a lot of gunk, a lot of nasties. We're gonna pull those out. Everything else we want though. All the other little bits and bobs, it's all gonna help bring some proper flavor, lad. Those shells have all been de-gilled now, and they're gonna go in the oven to roast. I wanna dry them out, get as much of that moisture you can see all in there. Out of there as possible, but also to give them a bit of color, a bit of that maillard, that beautiful brown you kind of get on steaks and everything. That's where the flavor, that's the caramelization, lad. All them proteins get nice and golden and good, brother. Into the oven, not really sure how long, just long enough we can do all the other prep, and then we're gonna get back to them and see how they're getting on. So that beautiful roe tamale, whatever we wanna call it, you can put that in the fridge for now. We're not gonna need that till later, and we're gonna deal with that later on. What I'm gonna do now though is prep this lobster meat, get it chopped, not too fine, but just enough that we can mix it in, because it's not gonna go very far, just this lobster meat. So we're gonna mix it with some pork as well. It's gonna bring some fat, bring some structure to it. The old lobster meat is, I don't know if it's actually fatty or what, but it doesn't really bind well, you see? So pork meat, you get the fat all mixed in, you can kind of mix it all together, kind of emulsify it-ish, kinda. Get it to a nice kind of thick consistency, but lobster meat tends to stay pretty wet. So I got another little trick to help us thicken it up, and I'll show you that when we get to it. With that chopped, I'm gonna put it on the scales, because I want a 50-50 pork to lobster. How good is that? Lobster goes in, lovely, jubbly. Then the pork, some nice, pretty fatty pork mince from the butcher. Find your supermarkets, you just don't usually get very fatty mince. And for dumplings, fatty mince is the secret. Keeps them very juicy. That's what we want. We don't want any dry ass dumplings. So, we'll do 50-50 of this, just about. That'll do us there, plenty of that. To go with that, of course, there's a few goodies. We've got a nice big chunk of ginger and some garlic here. And if you didn't know, the best way to peel ginger is good to remove the little knobby bits, makes it easier, but to peel it with a spoon, it's gonna blow your mind, mate. Peel it with a spoon, scrapey, 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 nice, simple, easy. Kitchen hacks with Bollen. Oh, just get it in your eyes, this way. Good for you, mate, heaps good for you, mate. Helps you catch craze, mate. Now you can microplane this, a little bit of ginger, and it's a great option. It's a beautiful tool. I do love it, but lately, I have become a big advocate for little chunks and pieces. I find when you microplane, oh, it really got me in the eye. Oh, yep, rubbed it in, legend. Find when you microplane, the flavor, well, the ginger itself, it infuses, becomes a part of the flavor, definitely. It's in there, you can't deny that, but you can sort of lose it. Tree amongst the forest or whatever that. What's the expression? Can't see the forest for the trees or something, whatever it is. But when you have little chunks, as I'm about to demonstrate, you get these little pops of ginger flavor. And mate, I'm a fucking huge fan. Little pieces, get your knife skills humming, sharpen your skills. Little pops, little pockets of gingery flavor. Lovely. Goes with the lobster flavor, so good. Of course, it'd be rude not to do a little garlic as well. Smashy, smashy, mincy mince. We're well, and he's gonna go in. Pizza, mate. Now, 1 tablespoon light soy. Bosh. 1 tablespoon Chinese cooking wine. Bosh. Teeny tiny bit of white pepper. A little bit corn flour. Cornstarch, if you will, just to help bind it and thicken it. A wee pinch of salt. And I nearly forgot, I like to add some mushrooms. And these are tinned shiitake mushrooms. They're not easy to find always, and these are super cheap. Do them at Woolies, I think they're not even $3. Winner. Just fork them out and forget about it. Yep, they come. Just a couple, nothing major. Get a little choppy. Just dice them up pretty good. You want a nice even spread through the whole mix. Not crazy that they disappear, but enough that you can Get a little bit in every bite. Yeah. In they go. Easy as, mate. Bit of that. What are we missing? Ooh. Just for fun, an egg white. Help us bind it all together. Ooh. Ooh, he's done it. Bit of dog's dinner, that egg yolk in a good way. They'll be stoked. Glove back on for this job. We're gonna just, yeah, that's it. Work it down the fingers there, mate. Work it down there. We mix. Mix. Huh? Just kind of kneading, kind of work that mix. You want to kind of get it all blended together real nice. Kind of whip it real good. So you can see that's super wet usually for what a dumpling mix should kind of be, which is not ideal, but we got some nice big chunks of lobster meat in there, mixed all through that pork nice and evenly. So that's what we want. And you can see all these kind of greasy marks as well. That's that fat in the pork, that fatty pork meat's kind of not quite rendering out, but definitely softening up and kind of binding to all the proteins, and that kind of whipping motion. Like that, that's going to help sort of combine all of those parts and really bind it together. And really, that's kind of it. We got the butter to work on and a bunch of other bits. I think I've got to check on those shells in a sec and see how far along they are. Here's the secret. I'm going to chill that down. Now, I've got space in my freezer for this, so I'm going to chuck it in there, stiffen it up, get it nice and quick. But if you only got your fridge, only got space in there, it's fine. Put it in there, mate. It's just going to take a little bit longer. But look, nothing wrong with that. These shells are looking pretty toasty, if you ask me. And still a little bit of moisture in there, but we are looking pretty good. So, a little bit of cray meat. A little treat for the cook, eh? Be rude not to. So, what we're going to do with this before anything else, we're going to bash them up. Because we want to maximize the surface area. We do this extraction in a second, and I want to bust open all these legs, make sure we can get penetration into all of them, you know? So, try not to make a giant mess. This is also going to help. We don't need a psycho amount of butter to do this extraction. The more we can crush all this down, keep it flat, get rid of all those little air pockets, we can get it all kind of mixing and infusing and extracting. Whoa, dude. Now that I made a giant mess and crushed up all those shells, I'm gonna add some boiling water to the pot, and I'm gonna set up something called a double boiler. And if you don't know what that is, don't be intimidated. It's pretty easy. That's it, easy as. Pots are on, boiling water underneath, glass bowl on the top. Basically, it just means we're gonna be able to get an infusion of the butter and the lobster and everything in there without it burning, because the steam's only ever going to get to a certain temperature. It's never going to get too hot that the butter burns and browns and goes all gross. So we're just going to dump in all those shells. Oop, make more of a mess. Get all those little goodies out of there. And you see, because we crushed them all up, it's all sitting nice and flat now, and we're not going to need psycho amounts of butter. I'm still going to use a pretty rude amount of butter, but not quite the rude boy amount. In she goes. Get that butter against the glassware, because that's going to be the hottest part, and it's going to help it all melt down real nice and quick. And we're still going on this butter just a little bit. I'm just going to push this butter down the sides of the bowl so we can get it melted nice and quick. And once it's liquid, that's where the magic starts happening. You can see all that butter. Oh, get out of the steam here. All that butter melting, mixing with all the beautiful lobster shells. And I'm going to report back in a couple minutes. Usually leave it for like 20 to 30 minutes and check along the way. But basically you just want that butter's going to start taking on some color, flavor of course, but also heaps of that orangey crustacean shell color, pigment, however it works. Science. And that is our timer. Very gently, hot, very gently lifting that bowl out, and you can see that butter has taken on a beautiful orange hue, nice color from all those shells. Woo! Super rich crustacean-y flavor. Now, to separate the butter from the shells, I'm going to use this
chinois, but it's basically just a fine strainer. You can see it, super fine, little holes there for the mesh, no little bits of shells and chunks and gunk can get through there. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a cheesecloth, something like that. I've also used Chuck's cloth in the past. Kind of lay them out in a sieve or a strainer, a normal one. So make sure you give them a rinse first though. They're probably treated with all sorts of chemicals and who knows what goes into them. They're just for cleaning benches usually, so give them a rinse, squeeze all the water out, wash them real good, and then lay them out. Shumai, nice and easy though. Definitely a useful tool, a bulky tool, something to store, not ideal, but very handy to have. We're just gonna get this and start tipping it into there. Ooh-wee. And I like to leave it just sitting there for a while because it's all that butter is gonna be stuck to the shells and whatnot, and it's slowly gonna drip down, work its way into the bottom here, into our beautiful golden lobstery buttery nectar down here. Kind of agitate it a bit through there, and that's it. Lobster butter, easy peasy. Tell you what, we're getting down to crunch time now. The last few little touches, putting it all together. For the wrappers, my understanding is traditionally, bending it. Traditionally, they are circular. Now, I've gone for the easy option. You can buy your own wrappers, but I've also read that they are very difficult to get as thin as they need to be. So, I bought some. I cheated, somewhat. We've done everything else, I think. We gone and got the lobster, we made the butter, we done all the other bits, but just this one thing. So, I've got squaries, but I'm gonna cut them. Oh, look at that. I'm just gonna cut some circular numbers, make ourselves some teeny tiny shumai. I've got a bunch of those dumpling wrappers cut into nice circles, and we've got our mix all chilled down and way stiffer. You know what? I might even kind of like decant half of this so that we can keep the other half in the fridge and stop it warming back up. Little tricks, you know? Little tricks to make your life easier. We'll start with that. I'll steal a bit of that. Start with that. Back in the fridge with the rest. And this is the bit that I'm definitely yet to master. So, I've seen a few different ways that people like to do these, but the way I have been doing it is always a bit of trial and error, and usually overfilling it. But definitely a smaller spoon gonna help here. Just gonna put a generous amount in there. A little bit of water just on the edges because I find sometimes it doesn't want to stick to itself. And then we just smush them all together, something like that. Till you get a little, like almost like a little tube. And then just kind of, what I am gonna do is try and give it a little depression in the top because we're gonna get that lobster butter in there. So what I am gonna do though is put some water on to boil, get that pot humming, because we're gonna be getting these straight into cook, I reckon. Meantime, let's keep on at it. So the other way that I've seen people do this is to, definitely too much, kind of smush it all over and then lay it over there, the hand just there, and then just kind of push it down. Kinda, sorta, similar, doing the same kind of stuff. Still gotta kind of work around that and shape him up because I want like a nice, tall, little, presentable, little, toy little pack. You know what I mean? There we go, that one's better. Better. Alright, well maybe we do them like that. That kettle boiling, straight into pot, hold on. Woo. Quickly, while we're waiting. If you didn't know, a little paper in there, we're gonna make something called a cartouche. And don't be intimidated. It's a lot easier to make than it is to pronounce. So, we're gonna fold ourselves something somewhat resembling square. Fold that bad boy again and again, just making triangles here. Just cutting shapes, lad. And again, and if you really want, again. Then I like to eyeball this, get that somewhere center-ish, and then just cut him like so. And now we fold him out. Whoa, the big reveal. Look at that, circular. Potty's boiling, dumps are on the way, and keep on packing. I reckon I'm gonna stick with this little
flat pack way. There he is, round one. Toiling him up a bit, ready for the cooker. All right, lid on, onto the steamer. I don't know, let's call it, check him in, probably not even. I'm gonna go ahead and make the rest of these, get them all cooked up, and then we'll get into topping them. The last of the dumplings are cooking now, and it's time to prepare final little garnishes and bits and bobs. That roe, the tamale, kind of whatever it is, gonna whisk it, just kind of break it up till it's a smooth, homogeneous kind of paste. Very nice. Pretty easy with that. Flavors like sea urchin, if you've ever had that. Kind of briny, oceany, umami. Good stuff. Good stuff. Covered in it. The last piece to the puzzle is that lobster butter. It's been draining off. I've collected a fair bit in there. I'm just gonna get rid of this. Strain off. Make a mess over there for later. That's it. Now we wait. Right. Here it is. Look at him. Wow, wow, wow. Steamy number. Tell you what, the frozen mix was, well, the mix that was in the freezer, a million times easier to form them up, to get the little depressions, make them look real nice, because it just holds together. And I think even with like all that heat in there, it just kind of helps them set a bit quicker. So, I'm gonna get some happy snaps, some nice little pickies for the thumbnail, for Instagram and whatnot, and then let's have a nibble. So to get these all plated up, I like to take them, bing, bang, something like that, like so. And then we'll take a little bit of that butter, throw it on top. That's why that little depression helps a ton, because it's gonna hold on to that butter in there. And then we take the roe, the tamale, whatever it is, and just do a little top. The rest of that tamale, I can save for breakfast tomorrow. Whip it into some butter. So good. And that's a slipper dumpling. That's a lobster, pork, butter, tamale dumpling, and mate, that is insane. Something I've been trying to pull off for years, lad. And we finally got there. Tastes like victory, mate. I said before, you can like and subscribe, do all that good stuff. Helps the channel, helps momentum to the moon, lad. But YouTube does have a new little hype button down below. You can hit that. It's gonna let everyone know that this is a video that you were digging, you dug. It's worth checking out. So do that, it's gonna help me a ton. If you're keen on the whole recipe as well, I started writing on Substack, and you can check out that whole recipe. I'm gonna have a link for that in the description below. It is behind a paywall. It's a super small fee, just a month. But if you're not keen on paying, I'm writing up some stuff on there anyway, weekly. Just my thoughts and feelings. You can check out a couple of weeks ago, did a write-up on catching these slippers and what that means for me, because it was a massive achievement to finally be able to go looking for these things and actually find them, and then put this recipe together, be able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and eat these insanely rich dumplings. Oh, can't have too many of them, eh? Proper heart stoppers, these ones.